Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Sorry for the mix-up on this one. We had to move it by 1 week. Yeah, let me just put it here in the Fluent Slack channel and then we can get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Small audience today, but that's okay. We can have some more in-depth discussions. Okay, so yeah, last week we had FluentCon, KubeCon, and so that's hence why we had to move and shift it from last week to this week. There's a couple of really fun things that we had at the conference there. I think the first one was at FluentCon. We talked a lot about like some of the future roadmap around metrics, as well as traces. And so that's something now that we'll be continuing to expand on for the next KubeCon and trying to get something out there that we can all play around with. In KubeCon, we had a open telemetry, open metrics, and Fluent bit session. That was really great. Very similar to FluentCon, but that one was packed. It was like 150 seating room. I think we had 200 people show up, and then unfortunately had to reject a couple of folks because the room was so packed. So yeah, I think the big thing there as well was a lot of folks who are doing the metrics, a lot of folks who are doing traces and are excited to kind of have all of that stuff played together. So yeah, we're excited to keep on building a lot of those things, and you'll start to see some more discussion posts probably pop up here as we get a little deeper into many of those. We also had a lot of, I think, success with some of the workshops that we ran. So these are workshops where you could spin up a Fluent Bit and Prometheus, even M3 to try out remote write, and then Grafana to visualize. And I think that was pretty well received. So we'll keep having more of those workshops created, so you can keep trying these type of these things out. So yeah, that's a little bit about FluentCon, KubeCon. Any questions, Carlos, Ryan? Anything you want to chat about on that?
Might you guys be able to provide maybe a list of links to kind of best catch up on that?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll create like a little newsletter, if you will, and send that out. Okay, so the next two topics I think were both added by Pat. So the first one was OpenShift London meetup. So this is something that he'll be speaking at in June 16th, and he'll be talking about how to use Fluent Bit and how to use that on with Red Hat OpenShift. So this will be a pretty cool event. And Pat has a lot of experience with Red Hat OpenShift, so it's something I would highly recommend checking out if you are within the London area. I think we'll probably have another meetup right before this one too, and that one will be in the EU APJ time. So probably good to repeat that. Okay, and then really just the last topic was to talk a little bit about some of the backlog that we have. So we have quite a few PRs and issues, and one of the things that we have been thinking to do is that as maintainers, it's a bit difficult to try to commit to a SLA or response and how fast we can merge a PR or even review a PR. But perhaps what we can do at least maybe once a month is do something like I don't know, a hackathon, or try to get some things merged that are very simple to kind of reduce the backlog in a meaningful way. And we really want to keep on encouraging new contributors and improve the overall product. But it is hard to guarantee something. When you're building out your time schedule and you're like all of a sudden there's a spike of PRs, it is kind of more work, if you will. There's a CNCF support. I think Pat put this here. Really good idea. So maybe CNCF could help us with some of these type of community events. There are other things too that we've been thinking about for like hackathons or fun community events. We just opened up a repo for Lua examples, and we also are kind of close to finishing up Go input plugins. And so one idea is that we could have like a hackathon on both of these things. So if you want to build a Go input plugin for a SaaS service, or you want to build a Lua script to do XYZ, we could do that in kind of this like hackathon place, and maybe we could find some CNCF budget to get some cool prizes and some third-party judges as well. But yeah, that was another idea on how do we keep building some more events that are not just like participation or using the open source projects, but hey, why not just try to hack on them a little bit, which would be kind of fun. I think those are the main topics. If Sean, Ryan, Voodoo, Jose, if anyone has any additional topics.
Actually related to the work you guys have been doing with Go, out of curiosity, have you guys been doing a lot of performance testing as it pertains to handing off between like the C core, as I'll call it, and interaction with Go?
Yeah, good question. Yes, so we haven't released anything primarily because of that. So there is everything works actually end to end today. We even have two input plugins, one for S3, one for Google Workspace that we built. We haven't released anything there yet because primarily the performance is just not adequate. So for us, we see it as like, okay, we need to strengthen how input threading is handled, which will benefit actually every single input plugin like Tail and others. And once that is in a really firm spot, then we can release the stuff that we have. We also want to make it so it's monitorable, so it has all the metrics that you would expect. So we want to add those like, okay, we know how many input bytes, we know how many input records are coming from this Go input plugin. So those are things that we're adding prior to pushing live as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting as you guys are developing more modularity as it pertains with the Go ecosystem to provide some maybe more transparency for that stuff and get people more excited about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think yeah, there's always going to be a performance hit when we go between C and Go, even like Go output plugins. So like today, Go output plugins are a semi-popular way of sending data. And even with those, there is definitely a performance impact. Uh, and so yeah, it's a bunch of trade-offs there. Cool. Any other topics? We could keep it short. I know some folks joined here. It's just last minute, but we didn't have too much on the agenda today.
This is my first attendance at this meeting. I'm glad to see that these are going on. My company just started using Fluent really in earnest maybe about a year ago. So I'll kind of be keeping my ear to the ground in the community more going forward.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, welcome. Really, really happy to have you here. And if there are requests or anything like that that you have, this is a great forum for that. It's a great forum for even talking about like if you have a small issue, we might not solve it in this forum, but we can chat about it at least, and then try to move it to an issue, move it to a discussion. Um, it just presents a way that hey, if you need something, there's at least a meeting every 2 weeks to bring it up.
Yeah, I think that's great. That does remind me, I did post a little while back about visualizing like a data flow pipeline, and there were some, I think, Fluent UI, if I remember correctly. Is that still a recommended way to visualize a pipeline? I would like to, for example, like write unit tests on um, the flow of a pipeline, and visualizing it is very useful in its own right, but it's not programmatic output that can be consumed by a test or something. So yeah, do you have any comments on that?
I do. They're a little biased. So I work as part of a company called Calyptia. We have a visualizer where you paste your config and it will visualize it for you. So that's an option. It's free to use, but it is a non-open source piece. Fluent DUI hasn't been updated in quite a while. I would be interested, if we were to open source some more UI elements for the Fluent ecosystem, what would folks want? Is it like the building of the UI, the control of the UI, or sorry, control of the daemon? What is the challenge that you're trying to solve, I guess, with UI that we could look at?
I think since we've just built out primary functionality so far, we're doubling back and taking a focus on quality. And so I think because I tried my hand at like, using some of the like parsing the config and like walking the tree, it's really it's really complicated given the flexibility of the config syntax. So I kind of gave up on that in favor of just building a sandbox and then more end-to-end testing. Like if you send this input, does the expected output take place? So I think what I was going for earlier on was, if you can express a small graph in a config, and then you send it input, does it kind of, or just doing a static analysis of the config, do you have a dangling thing that never matches, like doing a unit test, like a typo in a tag, for example? It will never match. Instead of catching that at runtime, catch simple graph issues at
we do have
build
this
time.
open source project. And it's actually a GitHub action. This is all Apache 2. You could use this. It is built for Fluent Bit. I know you said Fluent D though, right? But you can add it as part of like if you're storing your configs in in code, you can have it so every time you update your config, it'll lint it, and you can, let me see if I can find an example. Yeah, use example of this. So it will come in and tell you, hey, you have invalid plugins, you have XYZ that's not supposed to be there as part of it.
Okay, yeah, I think this could be useful. Does this? I saw an API key in the config. Does it shoot it off to Calyptia for analysis, or is this a library?
It does now because we run a container essentially as part of it. So we put like a small gate in it, but the idea would be to make this independent of any API key. It's just going to take a little bit more. We've had a couple ideas on how to do it, like adding maybe Fluent in the browser via WASM, or by enriching the parser even more. So a lot of ideas around it, but we haven't necessarily central on a couple of them. So yeah, I think
Okay, well, good to see progress.
yeah. So there's a Fluent interaction, and I think yeah, we are trying to build a sandbox. A sandbox specifically for input output. And then we have been talking about a unit test framework that's a little easier to use than what exists today. We have this expect filter that folks have been using, but I mean, I'll be honest, it's not the best. And so this is kind of another thing we had at FluentCon and KubeCon come up, which is like, how do I unit test better? How do I parse some of these things in a more effective way? Yeah, I think one thing that we can do as an action is like open up a discussion on unit testing. To make that more effective. And I'm very happy to build tools that are useful, but also, community focused and community open source. Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing, and welcome. Hope to see you at more of these. Hey, Pudu, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so I'm a bit new to this community, and I'm having a question that we are in my project now we are deploying a EKS cluster, and we have mounted a EFS file system. So we are trying to get the logs from that EFS file system into CloudWatch using Fluent Bit. So I just want to confirm whether it is a possible way, or we should use Fluent D or something like that, because in most of the tutorial I saw in internet, I saw that we can do it container logs, but EFS mount point logs, is it possible to deliver using Fluent Bit into CloudWatch?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if I understand it right, you have EKS with EFS as a mount in EKS, and then you're trying to read from that network file share to
CloudWatch.
Yeah, so I think in general, we typically say that we don't support network file share because there's a general host of issues that happen when you try to read from a network file share and say, for example, it hangs or something like that. We never get a signal back from the disk to say, okay, hey, this is the network connection has timed out. So in general, we say no, but I have seen folks who have done it, and with some of the new cloud-based network shares, like especially EBS and EKS, that's really the only thing you can do. So we do support most of that. With EFS, though, the latency might be too much, even with Fluent D. I'm wondering, is there a reason you're using EFS versus like a block storage or something?
No, we are using EFS. Actually, our cluster is also on the serverless environment. So the serverless cluster, and then addition to that, the EFS is also mounted there, not TBS.
I see.
Requirement,
So it's like
yeah.
the serverless EKS, and then EFS. Yeah,
So
I
is
mean,
it? I just wanted to know that if we have a if we make an attempt to get it done, is it it will be a success or not? Because sometimes in vain, if we try it, it is not possible to do.
yeah, yeah. Haven't heard people be unsuccessful with using. Like a lot of people use network file share, even though we say please don't do that. Um, Actually, I would ask another community member here, Bing Feng, if you're online. Is this a common scenario here? Bing Feng's from AWS, so wondering if
No, I
Oh,
haven't seen
oh,
this
heard
one.
that use case.
Yeah, thank you, Anurag, for this one.
Oh, it's we can't really hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now? I'm on a
Yeah.
headset. Okay, I put the microphone over my head. Yeah, I think. Well, I haven't heard about this one before, but I think you can cut the issue to the community or to the AWS community. Now we can take a look and take a deep dive into it. Okay, and then we can take a look to see what we can do. Okay.
okay.
I
Right.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is pushing those EKS logs to EFS really a good pattern anyway? Shouldn't there be a lot with like EKS pushing that out to like CloudWatch? I think was kind of is there, and then for Fluent D, isn't there like a input plugin that you can pull CloudWatch logs?
Um, the common one we see is put into CloudWatch, and so the customer can see it. And but it's okay if you prefer third-party destinations like S3, AWS, or Splunk or Datadog. That's that we are trying to make this. Even though I'm part of AWS, we're trying to make this one flexible for customer to use. The EFS part is new to me, and I want to make sure that you document what exactly is the problem. We can take a look.
Yeah, I mean, to Anurag's point, I think at least in the context of the Fluent community, I think loading from file shares has largely
It's
been
a
like
common.
it's an anti-pattern though, right? It's something that like is discouraged. So I'm just wondering if there's not a better way for them to push those logs out in the first place that then FluentBit could in turn be a better consumer for. So there's not like a native, as far as I know, S3 or CloudWatch can input plugin for FluentBit yet. But those would probably be more apt for development instead of banging against the network file share situation, which is known to be problematic.
But meanwhile, I understand the value of using those file systems because it's shared across different AVZs. It is safer for customer to have all the, if something went wrong, and you can still have the storage. Okay, and as for the ensure it is there. It makes sense, and how integration between EKS and EFS is reasonable. But how do we make sure that the logging is working in these cases? I think we can take a deep dive into this part and to see what we can do. Okay, and can get see if this is a real use case. Then we should invest more on this part. Okay, I will talk to the EKS team as well. Okay.
Thanks, Bing Feng.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I ask Palm Voodoo to log the issue in the AWS Fluent bit. Now we can take a look. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Okay, I will discuss with my company and I will raise a question from the partner board. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you're using, if you do not want to share this one in the community, and you can also go talk to your AWS account manager, cut the issue internally, engage your account manager so we can follow up internally if you don't want to share externally. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone have anything else, or I think we can wrap up. I think this was really good. I'm keen to start this discussion post on unit tests, and having folks contribute there.
Yeah, I think talk about unit testing part. I think we have a tool. I don't know if he's interested. We can go do the unit test using different framework. Give me a second. For customer to try it. Let me find it. Give me a second, okay? If you're
Yeah, we have some time. In an arrogant search in this.
Yeah, in the AWS Fluent build, I think we have mentioned there's one tool that we develop internally for developers to do the unit test in terms of different load, so they can actually help find out the performance issues or ingestion issues. Okay, let me find it. We released probably a couple of months, last month or a couple of months ago to see where it is. Give me a second. I think it's in the release notes. Let me find out the release. Testing. Yeah, I think I found it. Yeah. So I share in the chat room.
Okay. Yeah, great. I'll put it in.
So this is the one we refer in the Finance data jet. We actually allow customer to actually, we use this one for testing. I believe we also share with Anara, we share with your team as well.
Okay.
So how we can actually help us to do the performance testing, load testings. And if you have any issues, and the Sean and you can go feel free to log a issue over there and I'll help you to do the testing. So for the unit test, that's the goal. Okay.
Very nice.
Great. Thank you.
I'm gonna post this in there.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for joining this meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks all. Really appreciate everyone joining.
Thank you.
Guys.
Take care. Thank you.
See you next time.